Hello everybody. So I'm Mark Leondaris. So I'm a reproductive endocrinologist. I'm also gay. I have a husband. I have 2 kids through egg donation and surrogacy, and I've been kind of in this space for now almost 10 years. So I think it's the Men Having Babies conferences I really like, but I also think you're covering a lot of ground all at the same time, so you need to take it piece by piece. There's 2 couples that I saw here today that were here last year, so it's not common to be kind of a repeat subscriber. And for our practice, so we're right outside of New York. We're a practice of 6 reproductive endocrinologists. We'll do about 1,000 IVF cycles. This year we'll do about 150 transfers into surrogates. There's about 6 IVF clinics that do like 90% of the surrogacy cycles in the United States. And so that's us, one of the other ones that are here, and the other IVF clinic that's here, does a reasonable amount. So to have competency to do a gestational carrier cycle for egg donation for 2 guys, working with a surrogacy agency plus the legal requires a lot of bandwidth. So one of the things I'm really happy about our office is that, so we have about 120 employees, but we have 10 dedicated employees for third party. So there's 4 nurses, 5 admin people, 2 social workers, a genetic counselor to help navigate this complicated process. So as far as choosing a clinic, for us, we have kind of a lot of experience in doing this, and we're going to help guide you through it. I think it is important that whoever you choose to work with, you feel like you can build a trust-based relationship with them, because while it all sounds great, you're going to have a baby, you're about to embark on the most complicated family building journey in the history of man, right? So 50% of pregnancies in the United States are unexpected, right? There's no unexpected pregnancies for you guys. It's a lot of work. So I always like to kind of think about the pieces of the puzzle. So you want to be a parent. If you're single or partnered, well, what's your semen analysis? How do you know that that's normal? So getting a semen analysis up front is part of kind of what we usually start with. You can do it locally wherever you live. You don't have to fly to New York to do it or anything like that. And about 2% of guys are going to have severe male factor infertility, and that might change the equation, right? You've got to understand your family history, and is it a good idea for you to have a genetically linked child? Is there anything hiding in your genetic code and things like that to address, right? We all saw that. You just hit him. So you're faced with these decisions that your straight friend who finds their wife, they're not like, well, he's not like, well, your mom's crazy, we're not using your eggs. It's just assumed. So you guys have all these choices, right? So once you kind of get into this mode that you're going to have a child, I think you also have to process that it's a long haul process. So it's typically, the shortest it ever is usually 15 months, but it usually goes out to almost 18 months to 2 to 3 years. And then the process is going to be you guys desiring to be a parent, and then you need an egg donor. It's hard to find an egg donor. There's thousands of egg donors out there, but there's probably about 5 egg donors for any one couple that works. If you're a partner, then you both have to agree, right? And then you've got different ethnic groups, you have different issues. So when my husband and I picked our egg donor, I was stuck on the fact I didn't want somebody who had nearsightedness in their family, because I started wearing glasses at the age of 7, and I hated it my whole life. So, and he wanted someone who was tall because he's Norwegian. So I'm like, okay. So you gotta negotiate things. So those things don't make any difference, but what does make a difference is her family history. You need to look at her siblings, you need to look at her family, you need to look at her family tree. How she looks is important, but everybody has a good picture, right? The beautiful thing for you guys here now is, so we have our own pool of 50 to 60 fully screened donors. So that's one of the things that makes our clinic unique, and some of the other clinics have that as well. But they're fully screened donors, but we have childhood photos, adult photos, and videos, right? And most of the good quality agencies have those things. Because you also have to think about when you find your donor is that you're going to be talking to your 9-year-old someday about why you picked this donor. So it's not because she had a good picture, because they're not going to care about that. It's going to be what she wrote in her profile and what you have to share with them. So think about what's available for your child to be, right? Other parts of finding a donor is you need a donor that passes screening. I don't know if they've talked about this already, but only about 5 to 7% of young women who apply make it through the screening matrix. So it's initial questionnaire, 15-page questionnaire, mental health testing, mental health interview, drugs and alcohol, infectious diseases, recessive genes that cause disease, and then look at their ovarian potential. And that gets you to that 5 to 7 out of 100. So some people, by the way, do choose to use a sister as an egg donor, and we actually have 4 of those cycles going on right now in the past 5 months in our practice. 2 of them are pregnant and ongoing, and some people even use sisters to carry their children. So just remember, your family can help in other ways. So that being said, finding an egg donor is a project, and you're just going to take your time with it. You can do things piece by piece. So find your egg donor. Once you find your egg donor, you've engaged with an IVF clinic. So that could be us in outside of New York, and then we're going to do our job, which means we're going to stimulate that egg donor. We're going to complete an IVF cycle. We're going to thaw the sperm we have in-house, and we're going to make embryos, and we're going to update you on embryo quality. So today, here, my lab emails me back and says that Brian and Michael have, 11 embryos to biopsy today, right? And I had to call them, with this great news, because they chose to do testing, and their testing plan only afforded them to do 10, right? So on a daily basis, there's updates from the IVF laboratory. So our job is to update you on that. So you've got your egg donor, your IVF cycle. You can relax. Actually, your work is done. It's my job, right? If you parse out this journey, you've got your IVF center, and then you get your surrogacy agency. So the surrogacy agency is a whole different animal, and it does usually take a few months to find a surrogacy agency, and it takes about 6 to 8 months to find a surrogate. So we work with about 22 different surrogacy agencies, and some of they all work a little bit differently, so you have to decide what works for you. So from my perspective, I also think you need to realize that we're all on the same page. You want to be pregnant, we want you to get pregnant, because that's how we measure our success rates, that's how we have happy patients. Your surrogate wants to be pregnant, because that's how she is happy, that's what gives her a sense of value, and that's also how she gets compensated, right? Your donor wants to get pregnant, because that's how she gets picked to donate again if she wants to donate again. Your attorney wants to get pregnant, even the insurance company wants to get pregnant, because that's how they get compensated. So everybody's on the same page. So I can talk for hours about this, but does anybody have questions, or should I keep talking? Yes, sir.
What are the typical services or procedures that could be covered by your health plan that we should check?
Yeah. So maybe you heard me talking over here. So I've spent actually the past 5 years going around the country kind of advocating for inclusive LGBTQ benefits. So you need to call your insurance company, and you don't have to say anything besides, do you have infertility benefits? And if the answer is yes, do our infertility benefits cover in vitro fertilization? Hopefully the answer is yes again, but it might not be. If they don't cover IVF, then you're dead in the water. And then the next question is do they cover in vitro fertilization for gay male couples? And you might get a please hold, or you might get yes. So right now I'm aware of about 100 companies in the New York metro area that offer fully inclusive benefits. Also Facebook, Google, Adobe, Pepsi, Frito-Lay, NBC Universal, Goldman, and a lot of the companies are starting to roll that in. If they say no, and they offer benefits for your straight couples, that's not fair. Then you got to roll it up to HR, and that will probably take 2 years to change if they want to change it. Does that answer your question?
So it's both a company policy and your health plan policy.
Yeah. So if I'm an employer, I might work with Aetna, right?
Right.
But then I have a menu of what I'm going to pick, and unless I pick I'm going to cover IVF for same-sex male couples, it's not in your bucket. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's another question right here.
Basically, just figure out outside of New York, that means New Jersey or New York?
No, we're in Connecticut. So compensated surrogacy is not legal in the state of New York. And in New York, if I do an embryo transfer into a surrogate, I can go to jail. I'm considered a felon. So the vast majority of about 80% of my practice are gay men, right? And the vast majority of them live outside of New York, right? Because I'm right outside of New York. So we're the largest provider for that population.
Connecticut is legal to do surrogacy and everything?
Yep, Connecticut's a very surrogacy legal state. Connecticut's a small state, so the surrogate's usually not from there, right? Most of the surrogates are from anywhere all across the country, but it's perfectly legal for me to create embryos and transfer embryos into surrogates in the state of Connecticut. Yeah.
Hey Mark, how
Yeah.
long do you engage with the fertility business?
I've been a reproductive endocrinologist for 22 years.
All right.
So,
As your 22 years experience, did you do genetically added baby?
genetically added baby? I'm not sure I understand the question.
Don't remember 3 months ago, have a big news in China about scientists?
So, genetically edited babies. First of all, that's not legal. Secondly, so that CRISPR-Cas9 technology that one researcher did in China, that Chinese researcher has since been kind of summarily gotten in trouble with the community, number one. And now there's a concern that what he did put those children at more risk to die of West Nile virus and other things. So whenever we play with our genome, we're not really sure what we're getting into. So we would not do that. So where the future of embryo testing is right now we can test for chromosomes. Sex comes with that if that's important to you. The next step is cancer genetics. And then from there it may be adult diseases such as like high blood pressure, diabetes, and things like that. But as far as traits and so on, it's not really ready for prime time. And you do not want to be the person who we do the experiment on because it's your child, right? So just because they can make a stem cell out of a stem cell in a mouse that makes a mouse pup doesn't mean we're going to make a human with it, right? Long answer to your question. Go ahead.
Regarding genetic testing, is there any risk to the embryo?
It's about a 1 to 2% chance of harming the embryo. So imagine you've got your Xbox, right? So you've got basically the embryologist takes this microscopic embryo, they put it on a holding pipette, a little bit of suction. They basically have already drilled a hole in the shell, and they suck out about 5 to 10 cells. They laser off the cells and put those cells in the bottom of the tube. So there's a risk of harming the embryo with that. It's about 1 to 2%. Human embryos actually, the biopsy section they're taking are the trophectoderm cells. So within a matter of hours, those cells have been replaced because they're stem cells they're dividing. If you harm an embryo, it doesn't mean it doesn't go to first grade or doesn't get a bachelor's degree. The embryo just crumps in the lab and doesn't keep going. So you can see that. The other side of the equation, about 20% of embryos from young donors are chromosomally abnormal. So you have about a 1 to 2% chance of harming an embryo and about 20% of embryos that are chromosomally abnormal. That being said, our professional society, the American Society of Reproductive Medicine, says you do not need to do, we should not recommend PGTA for people using egg donors because it doesn't change your chances for having a baby. So if I have 5 embryos and one is abnormal, if I transferred the abnormal one, maybe you didn't get pregnant, maybe you didn't have a baby, you still have 4 normal ones, you're probably gonna be okay. The difference and reason why gay and straight couples using surrogates often do PGTA is every time you fly your surrogate in to do a transfer, it's a big deal. And it's like $2,000 right there. The cost to do this testing is like $3,000 or $4,000. And for your surrogate to have a miscarriage or for your surrogate to have to terminate and things like that is a big deal. So the vast majority of intended fathers seem to do PGTA based on the cost and the benefit of it. I have one more question. Yes, sir.
One gentleman earlier spoke about envisioning a family, right? Long-term plans, how big you want the family, how many children
Yeah.
you want. So when we go through this process, you'll have a dozen eggs, you'll squeeze that down to 4 or 5 embryos.
Yeah.
And when we go through this journey, if your plan is to have 1 child at that time, and then future-wise you'll have 2. Does the cost kind of change when I have an existing embryo
Yeah, so your IVF costs are, once you've created your embryos, drop dramatically. We're just going to thaw an embryo and do an embryo transfer, right? But your surrogacy costs don't change.
What is the cost just for the transfer?
So the transfer's like $5,000 to bring your surrogate in, might be $3,000, so it's like $5,000 to $10,000. But the cost for your surrogate is still going to be that, you know, 80 to 100. So, and that's why a lot of, you know, intended fathers transfer 2 embryos. They're willing to take that risk because to have 2 babies through surrogacy, you know, is basically $250,000 to $300,000.